Good evening, everybody who are watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Wednesday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Huge news while I was gone. Our featured story, we're talking about potentially the end to the war in Gaza. And in a way, we're picking up on the show from last week. All throughout last week, we talked about Trump's 20-point plan for peace, which was presented last Monday at a press conference with Netanyahu. We talked a little bit last week about what's in the deal and what was added to the deal, and the prospect that the deal would ever be agreed upon or implemented. And I was very skeptical and pessimistic about it, but it seems like so far so good. The big news today is that Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of that deal. And it's important to understand what that means. We had a phased deal, a comprehensive deal back in January. Israel did not implement anything beyond the first phase. And there was an agreement in principle without many details. It seems like this is similar. It's hard to say right now, though, whether it will have the same outcome or a different outcome. Seems like there is a stronger will and follow-through in the White House to see this deal finished, to see it through to potentially second, third, or other phases. But so far, as of tonight, and it came together very quickly, there was an agreement between Israel and Hamas. Apparently, there was already a signing in Egypt. This happened earlier tonight. And this is implementing phase one of the deal. And that includes hostage release. So Hamas will release all of the remaining living Israeli hostages within the next 72 hours. And everything is contingent on that. And if Hamas does this, Israel has agreed to release hundreds of their Palestinian prisoners from Hamas, but also from Fatah, from other political parties in Gaza. And then Israel allegedly is going to pull back from 70% of the Strip. Now, what's interesting about this part of the deal is that Israel has not announced that they've agreed to that. The first phase says there's a prisoner exchange, prisoner release. The hostages go. Hamas gets, I think, over 1,000 prisoners back. The other part is that Israel pulls back out of most of the Strip, and then they let humanitarian aid come in. But, and this is reported in the Times of Israel and the New York Times, the United States is talking about a withdrawal. Israel has not said anything like that. And they're saying that this is only phase one and it's all contingent on Hamas. So we'll talk about where everybody is at and what we know about the deal. But I want to stress that this is phase one. And like always in the Strip and with the Israel-Palestine peace process, there seem to be maybe some last-minute discrepancies. And you might think that's not a big deal or hand wave that away, but the devil tends to be in the details here. So we'll talk all about that. That'll be our main story. We'll catch up on Israel-Palestine. We're also going to talk tonight about the Charlie Kirk text, which was unveiled a couple of days ago by Candace Owens, finally. And a lot of people saw the text and their first thought was, okay, well, here's the proof. Israel did it, Candace Owens wasn't lying, etc.
That's not what the text says, man. Come on, man.
I'm sure you've all seen the text. This is apparently a text from 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was killed. It's from the morning of September 8th, and allegedly he's in a group chat with 9 other people. It's a group chat of 10 people on, I believe, WhatsApp. There was initially some confusion whether it was Telegram, whether it was WhatsApp. I believe at this point it's been established this was a WhatsApp group chat, September 8th in the morning. And Charlie Kirk says explicitly, we lost another pro-Israel donor.
Wow.
And it's a big one. They pulled back $2 million. And this had been reported in the press already. So he's verifying the details. We lost another major donor, $2 million. And that's because they refused to disinvite Tucker from the upcoming America Fest conference. And Charlie goes on further and says, I will not be bullied. He says, I might have to leave the pro-Israel movement. He said, they've left me with no choice. They have forced my hand.
Step back.
And a lot of people saw that text and believe this to be incriminating. They say this supports this theory that Charlie Kirk was abandoning the pro-Israel cause. Obviously, that's what it says in the text. And that then, in furtherance of that, Israel killed him to prevent him from leaving the pro-Israel cause. They couldn't bribe him. They couldn't intimidate him. So they had him murdered. So the argument goes. I would say, I'll also add, the text has been verified by Andrew Colvett, the PR spokesman for Turning Point, who's kind of been like the PR guy for Charlie Kirk ever since his death as well. Almost the representative for Turning Point on this matter. So we know the text message is authentic. There's some questions about the text. Who is in this group chat with Charlie Kirk? There's allegedly 10 people in there. Who are they? We don't know.
I will say the most closest individuals that were part of the company. That's what I'm just imagining that those people could be. Outside of that, you would not be having these type of conversation, not knowing who are these people. So probably very, very, very close. Probably the same people that are in the panel. Probably just, I'm assuming here, like the people that you see in the panel during the Charlie Kirk show, probably some of those folks.
Other outstanding question, which is what else is being said in the group chat? Because what we have is one screenshot. I believe we have 3 or 4 distinct single text messages from Charlie Kirk and a couple of replies from an unnamed other person. We don't know the full context of the conversation. And I would say that it's probably essential to get that information. Because although the text messages are authentic, we don't know what is the context. How did this conversation revolve? And who is he saying it to? Is he venting? Did this represent an actual break with his previous advocacy for Israel? These are some important, outstanding questions. But I would say even just with the text messages that we have, it paints us a picture about what exactly was going on. And in reality, I think it proves my point, which is that Charlie Kirk did not leave pro-Israel. Pro-Israel left Charlie Kirk.
Ooh.
It's not like he had this epiphany, change of heart, jump ship because he didn't feel right. On the contrary, he desperately wanted to be pro-Israel because he is a big tent coalition builder. And that is where a lot of the money comes from. And that is a substantial part of the donor base of the entire conservative movement. So did Charlie Kirk turn his back on that? I'm skeptical. I think what makes more sense is that he was put in an increasingly difficult position where as the coalition builder, as the big tent orchestrator, he had to accommodate everybody as the movement was fracturing. And this is something that was happening independently of him. His job was organizing the coalition, and the coalition was fragmenting. That was just simply the political reality, largely due to these differences between people like Tucker Carlson and the Israel lobby, people like Candace Owens or Megyn Kelly or even the college students themselves and the government of Israel. And he was put in the unfortunate position of trying to keep everybody happy. And, well, the pro-Israel side, they pulled the plug. They pulled the funding. They did not want for everybody to be included. And that's why Charlie Kirk said specifically, they have left me with no choice. It was they that pulled the plug. You can't fire me because I quit. You can't pull $2 million from Turning Point because I'm leaving the pro-Israel cause. I think if you read it closely, you'll see something more like that. But we'll talk about the entire thing. We'll go into the text. We'll read them exactly. And I'll give you my thoughts on them.
Like the video, guys.
Should be a pretty good show. Helps. It's good to be back with you. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. It's been a little while. I wasn't here Friday or Monday or yesterday. And that is because I was out of town doing some big collaborations. You saw a couple of them already. There's 2 that have been posted, and there are still 2 that will be posted, I think later this week or maybe early next week. But you already saw there was a major premiere this afternoon, my long-awaited interview with Dave Smith. And that is actually, maybe that was the biggest one in a sense. It was maybe the most anticipated because, of course, me and Dave had a major beef last year. And I don't know how much I want to get into the beef itself tonight. If you want to know more about it, you could watch the show. But this afternoon, Dave Smith premiered our interview, which we recorded earlier in the week. And it was a massive interview. It was like 3.5 hours. And we talked about everything. We talked about drama. We talked about Tucker, Candace, the generational run. We talked about our beef. We talked about the Holocaust, Israel, Trump, Vance. We really covered like everything. It was a big interview, and I really like that because this is a very interesting time that we're living in, obviously. This is maybe one of the most consequential years in a long time, maybe since 2020. It has that same like world historical significant feeling that it did in 2020. Like, you know that old quote, they say there's days where years happen. It certainly feels, or years where decades happen. It certainly feels something like that. And doing a huge, long conversation like that, I feel like it lets the conversation breathe. We're not doing the autobiographical stuff. It isn't just focused on one issue. We were able to spend some decent time on a few different big subject areas. So I thought it was excellent. And I really like Dave. I think he's a really smart guy, very funny, very sharp. And so I knew that it was going to be a good one. Going out there, I knew that is exactly what it was going to be. I think we both had a very good feeling going into it, very positive. We had a couple of phone calls. We texted about it. And at least speaking for myself, I know that going into it, I sort of knew it was going to be like a 2, 3, maybe even 4-hour talk. It was going to be what it was, which was clearing the air, very direct, very high IQ in the sense that, like I said, we're not having to relitigate all the basics, you know, the kind of biographical information, or we're not going through the rigmarole talking about everything having to do with Israel. It was maybe more of a developed conversation. So I was really pleased with it. We recorded it, I think, yesterday, and I walked away feeling really happy about it and happy with everything we covered. And like I said, some of the...
Yeah, Nick, it seemed like Nick only wants to be heard. And I understand that. I'm sorry, I understand that position. Man, he has been canceled so much that it's not fair for him. I don't think it has not been fair for him. Yeah, he just want to have the conversation. I think just having the conversation really helps.
Depth we got really into. Does. And it was a long time in the making. You know, we had this big beef last year. To tell you the truth, I didn't even really think of it as a beef. And we talked about it on the show. And I told him, I said, look, like I like you and I think you're smart and I think you're funny. It was never personal. I said, but of course, Dave, as you know, he plays a very important role in this emerging conversation. Everybody recognizes it is of great import and significance that suddenly people are able to talk about Jews in Israel.
Yeah.
In a way that was not possible. In a way that
it was not possible. We're talking about even 4 years ago, man. If you even mentioned jewelry in your video, your YouTube channel is done. It's done. And even now, I can't even mention it. I don't wanna be in the chopping block. But if you mention jewelry, I mean, you were gone, man. Gone. I think Sotomayor did a video about some jewelries in Brooklyn and how they were, you know, doing some weird stuff, and they gave him a strike right away, and he stopped talking about them right after. So that showed you how much we have improved. But again, we need to continue, right? Because I'm almost a free speech absolute. I think all these important conversations need to be had. The only thing that just crossed the line is when, of course, you threaten somebody's life. I think that's the only time that I'll say, you know what, that's enough. We should not be doing that.
About these things openly or dissented in the way that you can now. Years ago, you'd be canceled, fired. There'd be enormous public pressure.
Yeah.
Obviously, all of that is changing so rapidly. And one of the figures who has been leading the charge is Dave. You've got these bigger figures like a Tucker or a Candace, and they've been changing the conversation in their own way. But when you tune into Candace or Tucker last year, they brought on Dave to kind of break the ice. And he's there on Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, all these kinds of shows. And anyway, the point is, and I think I said this in the show the other day, my critique, or maybe just my observations about that predicament, it didn't really have to do with him as a guy. It wasn't like I was putting him down as a man. He's a good guy. But it was more talking about the role that he was playing and why maybe he was playing that role as opposed to other people. And at the time, I said, look, it has a lot to do with him being Jewish. And, you know, I'm not the only person that has noticed this, that when Turning Point USA in July, when they have their debate, their pro versus anti-Israel debate at SAS, it's two Jews. And I don't think that's lost on anybody. And it's not to say that Dave doesn't bring a lot to the table. He's a brilliant guy. But I think a lot of people noticed it's sort of like if two conservatives wanted to debate about a black issue, and it's a very sensitive, touchy subject. It's having to do with something taboo. You often get called racist for having a dissenting opinion. It was commonplace for many years that you would bring in a black person. You'd bring in Alan West. You'd bring in a black conservative. Why? They have license to dissent because they are black. And that disarms or neutralizes any potential critique. It sort of inoculates the conservative side from any critique that you're being anti-black. How could someone that's black be anti-black? If the conservative position on blacks has historically been called hateful, racist, anti-black, well, it's safer to have a black person be the representative because it's harder to make the case that that person is coming at it from a racist perspective. So I sort of had the same opinion in 2024 and 2025. It was like, okay, so everyone's warming up to the topic. Let's bring on somebody that cannot plausibly be called anti-Semitic. Why? Because they're a libertarian, anti-war Jewish person. So anyway, so that was kind of the basis of it. And we really ironed it out on the podcast. And I think that what we came away with, which was actually productive, believe it or not, a lot of these conversations are bullshit. And I'm not trying to knock anybody, but I mean, you know, a lot of these conversations, it's about making an introduction. Okay, who is this guy? We want to get to know him. We want to get to meet him and interface. We want to expose him to a new audience. We want to nail down what his ideas are. And to me, that feels more like an exercise. This conversation was truly productive because we're able to determine how and whether and in what ways me and Dave actually disagree, because I think that was sort of ambiguous. And that was the subject of my initial dispute with Candace Owens, because Candace had me on her show, white knighting for Dave. Of course, she sat me down and on Dave's behalf said, why are you attacking Dave Smith? Is it because he's Jewish? He's on our side, this and that. And I told her, I said, look, I said, me and Dave have a real disagreement. I said, and what seems to be happening is that Dave represents maybe a more moderate or liberal side of the Israel critical side. And whether it's because of this tokenism to soften the blow, or it's because it's ideologically more liberal, I said there's a higher tolerance for that than my position, which is a more radical critique of the whole enchilada, of the whole thing. And, you know, she, I think, was being a little tough. With Dave, I think we really straightened it out, and what we walked away with